It says we are live. It says you are live. Yes, it does say that. It is.
Must be live as well.
Yeah, it is Saturday night. It is just gone 8 o'clock. Sorry for the delay, but things happen. Tonight, got my coffee. Tonight we are doing. Wait a minute. Hold on. No.
I did that one. Hey!
No! That one.
Hey!
There we go. Got it in the end. Do you know? No, I watched Web of Fear this week because I didn't have it. I didn't have it in my collection, and they sent me. I ordered the. I didn't. Wait, so I just bought this version, and I tell you what, I love that artwork.
It's pretty cool.
That's sexy artwork. They give you the flip reverse sleeve, so if you flip that around, you get your classic DVD cover. But oh, that is pretty sexy as a cover. I'll give them that. And they're doing better all the time with their artwork. Every time they do a new release, you know, they do something. Not that that's a new release, but every time they do a new release, they seem to be doing some really cool artwork, especially. And I know I mentioned this thing, but on September the 14th, I will be getting my Blu-ray copy of Fury from the Deep. So, oh yes, I'm having a good month. So yeah, tonight we're doing The Deadly Assassin. This is a classic Tom Baker episode, following on from The Hand of Fear. It's the return of the Doctor's old enemy, the Master. I think we need to have a quick chat about this episode before we get started. So let me just pull this up here. This is, I would say, probably one of the most referenced Doctor Who Fourth Doctor episodes. Wouldn't you agree, Chris?
Yeah, I suppose it is referenced a fair bit.
It's one of those, but it's one of those episodes whereby people put in sort of in the upper echelon of Tom Baker's stories. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I'm just sorry, mate. I was just adjusting my tablet. So I've actually got my tablet back. So I've got info on hand today.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, it's it is a good story because this is pretty much. Is this not like this? Will we save the Master until the Keeper of the Kraken now?
Keeper of Kraken, we don't see him until then. No, it's
no. So that's kind of him out of it, and then basically we enter the Anthony Ainley, and as much as I love him, more pantomime version of the Master.
Yeah. No, we get into talking about the Master a little bit later on, but this really was a pinnacle episode for Doctor Who, mind. In that, really, this was sort of the big sort of. It's the Time Lords. Now, here's the thing. Last week we done Hand of Fear, and Hand of Fear was the episode which I regard as one of the highest, best executed episodes of Doctor Who throughout. Regardless of time period, regardless of it's like Jaws. It was shot well. It was a good story. It was solid all round. There's only one or two ropey shots that you go, oh okay. So exactly the same as Jaws, but throughout it is a really solid piece and really really well done. This week I have a couple of issues. It's not. I don't. Not from a story standpoint though. The story is obviously it's ripped elements from the Manchurian Candidate and so on. It's a story about brainwashing. It's a story about presidential assassination. It's a story about all these different things. And the Master is the puppeteer behind it all. And there's lots of stuff going on. My first complaint about this episode though is that
What, the word deadly?
Yeah. Because how can you have a non-lethal assassin? I mean, if it had just said the assassin, that would have been great. But we're in a time in Doctor Who whereby everything's got to be the hand of fear, fate, death, blood, all this stuff. There's no need for that word. That word there is superfluous. A non-lethal assassin is just somebody who accosts people. I mean, the title itself would have worked just as well without it.
No, they're underlining the danger he poses. Not only is he very dangerous, he's very deadly.
But that's he's not a dangerous assassin. If he was a dangerous assassin, he wouldn't be killing anyone. I mean, you know, you couldn't have a Doctor Who story about the guy who just pushes people over.
You could these days.
I mean, yeah, I suppose. But yeah, it's an odd title, and it doesn't really. It slightly grinds my gears. That's all. It's just one of those things. It's like when somebody says to you, you know, I don't know. They put something into a sentence and it's just like that doesn't belong there. What are you doing?
You've really thrown me because I've never really thought about it before. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know what to say to that because I've never thought about it before. So thanks for that, mate.
But no, right. But the other thing that I think about this episode, this is one of those Doctor Who episodes. This is the Tom Baker. Actually, this is the pinnacle Doctor Who episode I would actually nominate for a crowdfunding to actually have this done as a complete special edition.
All right.
I would actually want this episode to them to go back into the archives, find the best prints they've got of this episode, and to redo it from scratch. Right? And here's why. The episode story is brilliant. It's like a 9 out of 10 story. The costumes in this episode, some of them you can kind of see the paint coming off here or there, but that's nothing. That's really very little. It kind of works with some crusty old Timelords anyway, so it kind of factors in. The sets look pretty good. It's pretty much a studio bound production, and it looks pretty good. The problem is the way it was executed. It could be zhuzhed up. Like, the effects that they use in this are pretty decent, but we'll get around to it. I'll point out when you see it. But there's a matte shot in this episode whereby Tom Baker's in prison, and if you look at it, it's only on screen for a brief moment of time, but in that brief moment you can kind of see the perspectives off. And if you were to go back in and redo it, you could kind of just correct the perspective and to just not necessarily put, you could put whatever you liked into it because it's a really lovely matte shot, but if you just match the perspective, that would help a massive amount. But the other thing I would correct in this, and why I would do it, and do a massive special edition on this, is because there's a point in this story where they go inside the Matrix, and there's a kind of a battle fought inside the Matrix, and this is where I give it the big thumbs down. It's a nightmarish scene, and we've kind of seen this similarly sort of thing done very recently, actually, in Spider-Man Far From Home, whereby there's this nightmare sequence going on where things be. But the reason why I give it the big thumbs down is because it's all human. Everything inside the Matrix is human. There's a guy on a safari. He's supposed to be Gallifreyan. There's a biplane. There's a train. There's this. So, it's all human. There's nothing alien about it. And I think to myself, well, if these people are Time Lords, why would I can understand the Doctor's perspective because he's familiar with Earth, but the ones that aren't familiar with Earth, I'd be like, why would they be conjuring a bloody biplane? train.
Ian just joined us, so
Hello,
hello,
Ian.
beta males. Well, tonight, Ian, we're not beta males, we're omega males. Ah, see what I
Yeah,
did there?
yeah, I did. I got that. Yeah. So really, that's because again, I would change. I would do something where if I was going to special edition this, I would swap out the biplane for a Dalek spaceship. Because you can keep the strafing, you can keep all the, but you just insert a couple of flashbangs into the shot to make it look like he's being zapped by lasers and things like that. There's a big rubber spider, but it's inside the Matrix, so I can kind of let that fly. It's not like, I don't know, in some sort of Norwegian house.
Does it have its own chair?
Yeah, no, God. No, but I can kind of let that fly. Also, this episode, and the other reason why I would redo this as a special edition, and why I would want to redo it, is because this has the worst ending of any Doctor Who story I have ever seen. It's brilliant for like 90 minutes. But 90 minutes and 30 seconds, it all goes... Because I just... Oh, what are you doing? You'll see it when you see it, right?
It'll be interesting. I mean, it's been a while since I watched it, but I kind of remember it, so it'd be interesting to see which bit you're talking about. I think I know, but I'll progress.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. So overall, before we get started, before we get into this episode, there's a couple of returns to this story, and one of the ones is the fact that one of the Time Lords is Chancellor Goth, which is Bernard Horsfall, and he. Let me just go straight back down here because I want to make sure I got this right. He came back to Doctor Who after playing the original Time Lord. He was one of the ones that actually sent Patrick Troughton into exile.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna try to find it. But I believe he also played Gulliver as well in The Mind Robber. Yep, there he is, The Mind Robber. He was Taran in Planet of the Daleks. He was the first Time Lord. He was the first Time Lord in War Games. And he's Chancellor Goth in Deadly Assassin. So a bit of Doctor Who lineage going on there. What else have we got? Anybody else? I think that's pretty much it. I mean, obviously, we're going to have to talk about Peter Pratt a little bit.
We're also going to have to talk about the introduction of 13 incarnations for a Time Lord as well.
Yeah, 12 generations, yeah. Alright, so let's do it before we actually press play. Peter Pratt's the Master.
Heavily made up Master, but yeah.
Heavily made up. Again, another reason why I would special edition it, because I just deep fake it. Do something to that face, even if it was just make the eyes blink. Give him eyelids, something. In a time whereby they've already introduced things like Davros makeup, how successful do you think the Master makeup is?
It is creepy looking.
Yeah.
It is creepy looking. I can see what you say about making it blink, and there is an element of gravy going on about it as well, I suppose. See, I'm looking at it from a at the time point of view, and at the time.
But that's why I brought up the Davros makeup, because at the time, we've seen another example of them doing a full face prosthetic, and again we've also had Zygons at this point. We've also had Sontarans at this point. They've versed in this sort of makeup. And again, we get another example later on when Keeper of Traken, whereby the Master's back, but he doesn't have the ping pong balls. So
yeah, I might be getting my thoughts of the Decayed Master mixed up actually, with the one in the Keeper of Traken
Yeah.
before he does what he does. Oh, you see, you keep throwing me.
Well, when,
I'll have to look. I'm pretty sure I
when
remember.
you say,
It's not the best. Let's put it that way.
yeah, I think that they could have made had other choices. I'm okay with the faces, the cloak and gardening gloves. I don't like the he's got this sort of the thing that they've done with his hand was that they give him this sort of glove to wear, and they put like tubing over his hand to kind of make it look veiny and things like that, and then they sort of kind of dipped it in KY jelly. Which look just, I mean, it yeah, okay. I mean, there's again, they had other options. I think they would have been better if they just put a bit of latex, painted a bit of latex on his hand, and just done that, and just used a bit of makeup on it. Yeah, there's some, and as for his performance, I think it's very difficult to rate his performance because it's literally his voice. He's literally projected from behind this heavy mask. Because the other thing as well is because they've got this weird face on him, and this like this sort of hardened skull, sort of corpsey mask. He's got no lips. So
I think he does all right with what he's been given. The actual actor himself,
yeah,
his voice.
Absolutely. Again, it's all voice. It's all coming from. Wasn't some sort of life fluids, chemicals in pipes on his hand? Yeah, it was. It was, yeah. It was something weird. They done some weird stuff to it, but again, it's. I don't know whether the cloak thing is an interesting one because I'm trying to figure out, like, maybe he just didn't want to be seen in public and things, and he had the hood up, and so he wanted to just cover himself up. They've tried to show him as a decayed person, so they've kind of given him all these sort of ripped clothes and things like that. I don't know. Would the master have been more into bondage? I don't know. It depends on which master this is, because we don't know which master this is.
No, we don't. That's very true.
We only, all we know is it's before Anthony Ainley. But if it's Roger Delgado, then Roger Delgado's last life, which means that there's an entire regeneration, there's an entire life cycle missing. There's a whole, like, if Roger Delgado's the final version of the master, then where are the other 11 before him? On the other hand, if this is after Roger Delgado, this is a different incarnation of the master, then what was he like before he started decaying? So there's that. Then we know it's before Sacha Dhawan's master because he actually references this episode. We'll get into that as well. So before we get started, one thing I will like to say, as much as you might think I'm going to rag on this episode a little bit, it's only on the things that I genuinely think could be done better and could be improved upon. The one thing that I will definitely not rag on is the look of the Panopticon in this, because this version of the Panopticon pees mightily all over the one that we saw recently in the Timeless Children. So yeah, I don't really have a lot to add to that. I think we should just get on with the episode, I think. So I've got my remote control ready.
Yep. I've got my mouse ready.
I better turn the volume down. Oh, Christ, I'll blow people's ears out. So 3, 2, 1, blast off. Bum ba bum bum ba bum bum ba bum bum ba bum. La 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 la. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. There it is, the assassin. I won't let it go. You know I won't let it go. This is interesting.
It is.
Pre-Star Wars.
This was to change. Suddenly and terribly, the Time Lords faced the most dangerous crisis in their long history.
Oh yeah, they haven't met Chris Chibnall.
The Panopticon.
Their dress sense ain't any better though.
No. I'm going to mention something about, because I quite like, there's that famous memeable push-in. See, this is something that I would do on the special edition, which is now I would do the title sequence. I would have done the scroll up with him talking over the top of it. Now we would be going to the title sequence with him falling down with that. I think that could have been worked brilliantly for a tease. So apparently they made a decision here, which was they didn't really know how to show Gallifrey, and one of the decisions that they decided to make was to have the entire city underground.
Right outside the capital itself.
So that's kind of unusual. You don't actually get to see outside of Gallifrey. You don't actually get to see outside the city. I think the only time in the classic series you get to see outside the city really is the Five Doctors, isn't it?
It looks
It might be.
very much better, Castellan. I swear it was a Type 40. But that's impossible. There are no Type 40s in service. They're out of commission. Obsolete.
Obsolete. Try not to take no notice, my friend.
I think they did a good job casting pomposity in this episode.
Oh yeah, there's one thing the Time Lords are, it's pompous.
Yeah. And it's interesting costumes for the Time Lords as well. There's something sort of very Roman about them, but just sort of a bit Flash Gordon.
Yeah, I think I've been trying to put my finger on that, and I think you're right. Flash Gordon is exactly the right way to describe it.
Yeah.
It's not in a bad way either.
No. It's done in a sort of a. It's all again pomp and ceremony. It's all this. So, if you look at that panel there, you'll see the crystalline on the inside of the panel, and it's got this sort of almost frosting quality to it. If you look at it there, you can see like some of them don't light it up really that well.
Yep.
The reason for that is that they stuck the things on the inside, but they stuck it on with super glue. And super glue, when you stick any sort of plastic to a perspex, it automatically does that. It automatically frosts the plastic. So instead of using an epoxy, they stick it, so they had to turn the panel upside down. That's why it looks that way. It's because it's supposed to be the other way. There's supposed to be all these sort of like peaks and pyramids and little things on the panel, but they had to turn it upside down because they buggered it. Small little prop fact there. You know, the more I see this control room, the more I like it.
Well, I did try to say it's fairly good.
It's not only that, like, see, if you look inside the roundels got that sort of square diamond wood grain.
Yeah.
Which doesn't exist anywhere else on the walls but inside the roundels. There's a lot more design going into that than your first sort of glance, like. Yeah, I think I would be happy to see a larger, more more of a larger reimagined version then. Laminated. They didn't have laminators in for the BBC, they couldn't. So, as he, now his costume here changes. And I think it's because he nicked somebody's outfit, I think. But he's wearing sort of the tweed trousers with his waist jacket, and later on he's more in his pirate jack kind of outfit.
Let's go to the tower. You'll have to check every floor. All guards report to main tower, sector 7. Dangerous intruder at large.
I do like the setup of this story as well.
Yeah, no, the setup's pretty good.
Yeah.
Again, it's all pretty good. The only problem is that they humanise the Time Lords. There's things that they do in this story which really they should have not put into it. I don't like the news broadcasts. I don't like the fact that the assassin's weapon looks like a rifle. They could have gone a bit more alien. I mean, that is a bold choice for an outfit.
Evaded us, and he shot one of my guards.
I see. Such efficiency.
But we had him trapped in the communications system.
I mean, here's what I like with the Gallifrey set, mine. I'm glad it's not all white. Because this was at a time in science fiction where everything futuristic was just bloody white.
And concealing something a building a mere 53 stories high. Never strategic. You're trying to confuse him, I think.
I apologise, Castellan. He won't evade capture a second time.
You're trapped in a building 53 stories high. I mean, it's one of the best put downs, I think.
That's the first time we've seen Gallifrey written down as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. And apparently, when the producers did it, the guy decided not to learn his lines. And he decided to just read it off the thing, so he was given a fresh reading. And of course, they handed in the note, and the note didn't have any English on it. Good actor though. Hang on, quick. Yeah.
So you think there is a real danger, Castellan? He's already killed one of the guards. I think he's ruthless and determined. A typical CIA.
Castellan.
But if he is a member of
There's
the
George Pravda.
If he's been forced to spend on his vows, his fidelity is already suspect.
Yeah, he was in Thunderbolt. No, okay.
Perhaps to get us nervous, or just looking for
Firefox.
Tigonians are notorious thieves. Not true, Castellan. We simply see a little further ahead.
Professionals. I tell you what, he's done some good stuff.
Permission to withdraw 50 guards from the panopticon to search the communications tower.
Coldets. I wonder what he was cast as in Coldets.
I'll feel much happier once he's in custody. Very well, Spandrel. I should like to see this TARDIS. Extraordinary to think an old Type 40 is still operational. It's in Sector 7. What's this? Then we'll have to hurry.
There he is. Bernard Horsfall.
Now, where's the...
No, I'm reliably informed that one of the reasons why they wanted him to come back, not just because he'd already previously played a Time Lord, but he was around about the same build as Tom Baker. So they wanted somebody that could face up to Tom Baker and be about the similar proportions. He's more of an even keel. This is also an episode, I think, that they discovered that they could split the screen. Because that shot there of the Panopticon has the extras planted in it 3 times. So they all wearing one set of clothes, swap, wear another set of clothes, wear another set of clothes. They split it 3 times so they can really fill the screen up.
It certainly works.
Yeah. This is what I don't like. This bloody news broadcast. It's very sort of President Kennedy.
Yes? Public register people. But I could ask you for gracious, Runcible is not.
Yes, sir.
One of my own pupils at Brighton Academy.
May I congratulate you, sir, on your elevation to Cardinal?
Thank you, Runcible. Good day.
No, wait, sir, please. If I could ask you a few questions.
Runcible, you've had ample opportunity to ask me questions during your misspent years at
Now, this is an interesting thing. Look at the makeup for the Time Lords.
Yeah, it's a bit silvery, isn't it?
And it's on all it's like around the lips there, over the cheekbones. It's a bit. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if they were trying to make them a little bit more alien or what.
I mean, the thing is, I haven't done it to all of them.
No. But you'll like really see it on Chancellor Goth. See how he's just a little bit shiny.
Yeah.
So this is no Type 40.
It sure was infantry.
Remarkably good condition. What are you going to do?
I hadn't thought. I was more interested in something.
But I shouldn't leave it here in case he tries to slip back. Transport it into the capital. Oh, and keep me informed about your progress in the conspiracy.
Of course. Let's take this from the museum.
Modern effects. I was cutting edge at the time. A digital crossfade.
At least they tried to do something rather than just fade in and fade out for a change.
Absolutely. And if you've ever wondered how the Time Lords store their headdresses, there's your answer. There's one moment in this which always makes me giggle, and it's after the assassination. He walked onto the panopticon, and it's the chalk outline. It just makes me every time. Again, why there'd be a chalk outline, I don't know, but. See, that's something I would redo.
Yeah, I'm not sure why the cloak's all tatty as well, though. I mean, you could change that.
Yeah.
52 floors, nothing. I never left the lift. You think you doubled back? To the kitchen. Out here. There's nowhere else for him. Come with me.
Again, he's trying his best, but he's acting with just his voice under all that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a mask, and the face he has for keeping a track, it's actually underneath.
Ooh.
Now you could get into the Benedict. But everyone has to show up.
Well, look, it has worked, because,
I shall book you
what's his name?
and try to find it.
Oh, hell.
And Hillary,
Hang on a sec.
try to be discreet. I remember the novel of Conduct the Third.
Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston went to Comic-Con wearing a Walter White mask. So it can work.
Yeah, it can.
He was in the crowd, he walked up on the stage, he took the mask off, and it was Bryan Cranston. It was just like, brilliant.
900 years, eh? This one is a second look. He wants it. Oh, thank you. First time. Yes. Very different from the fellas nowadays, what? They're chopping and changing every couple of centuries. You're not gold, are you? What? This is my gun. That fella's giving me the nod down. What fella?
It does look like he was attacked by a curtain. See, these sorts of things I would just... I don't like in this story. The cameras, it's just very... just human. It's not very Gallifreyan to me.
Something inquisition. Something. If only I could convince the Chancellor the threat is serious.
They have to be really serious before they believe this happening. The President must be on his way to the Panopticon by now. Can I have the data, Kessler?
There's a scene with the reader recently.
Sorry, Bob.
No mind the rest.
For millions of extracts in the archives, it's hardly feasible.
I'll live in the dirt of the past, coordinator Henry. I can tell you that the old crimes besmirch the figures.
Well, it has been withdrawn. It'll certainly be a record.
I shall want to know who had it.
Yes.
But let's see the extract first.
Pleasure, Kessler.
I do like the guy who plays the Castellan. It's a good character. They just could have done something different with that. A Reagan would have been fine.
The yellow sands to be slept.
You have everything, sir? I think so.
Unless
That Time Lord sort of outfit there with the gold and the silver. It is. I mean, it's a bold choice, but bloody hell, it works for the Time Lords.
Yeah, it does. Certainly does. It matches the level of pomposity. I'll give you that.
Yeah. It's so over the top.
Luncheon, my dear chap, how nice to see you.
Oh, really, well, like I say, weren't you expert or something scandal?
Always wanted to talk about that.
Oh, really? Well, where have you been all these years?
Over here and there, you know, your arm on the back.
People randomly walking around everywhere.
Is there something the matter?
No, just a twinge in the knee.
Well, if you were with such a rackety life.
I think the Time Lord that's just walked out the door is now walking back in through the same door.
Yes. Well, nice to meet you. Let's get on. I'm doing the PR video class.
Yes, and splendidly too, if I may say so.
Oh, do you think so?
Oh, it's good. Somehow you have a wonderful way of making the whole thing come alive.
Oh, that's very nice.
It's good. I love watching the extras, the people in the background. It's so much fun.
Come on, you stupid bloke. What?
Should be getting a signal from my
I
camera.
must say, one of the things I do like that they've done in Modern 2 is like a lot of the shapes that you've got here. They've
Yeah.
kind of carried over. They've kind of stuck with that. They haven't like completely changed everything.
Disturbance here in the Panopticon as the President starts to ascend.
But this version of the Panopticon, I think is much better.
Moving forward to greet the
It's a little bit more grandiose. Like what they really wanted to do, really for something like the Panopticon here, they really should have, I don't know, gone to the Royal Albert Hall or something like that and shot just to give it a real big sort of space. But obviously they couldn't,
Yeah.
because that's really what it should have been. I mean, I know the Albert Hall might have been a bit recognisable, but you could have done a bit of dressing up and things like that. Hide things in darkness and spotlight certain things. Yeah, so that's the end of episode 1, where the Doctor has seemingly shot the President. Yeah, George Pravda plays the Castellan. So, now you've more familiarised yourself with the Master's makeup, what do you think of that?
Well,
Like I said,
not the best ever, is it?
no, I mean it's like I said, it's one of those things whereby, you know, this is why I would want a special edition, this particular story, because there are even elements whereby you could actually reshoot the Master, because you're literally dealing with a person in a mask, so you could just literally just refilm a new shot with a new Master's face, with a new actor, and just mime into the voice actor.
Yeah. Yeah, a friend of mine uses that deadly assassin face in a like one of his online avatars, but because it's only tiny on the screen, it looks quite impressive. Having seen it full screen again, yeah, it's not the best, is it?
It's the ping pong balls. It's the worst thing about it. It looks moist and wet, so that part of it is kind of like, if they'd taken the eyeballs out and they actually had just the actor's eyes behind it, maybe it would have been far more successful. But yeah. But there's lots of stuff they could have done. Like, there's lots of stuff I could do from special edition in this, which is like, you know, adding stuff behind, which is not just black. You know, you could add corridors behind there and things like that digitally, and just digital track some of this stuff, and really just shows you right the way up. Like, there's nothing behind Tom Baker for that. I'm not saying you've got to add in everything for the sake of adding it in, but you could really go to town with, you know, colour correction, with all this sort of stuff. You could kind of really sort of make Gallifrey look a little bit more impressive.
Is the president dead?
We live in even times.
Ah, Castellan Central. But you can tell me what is happening.
Oh, stand back, please. You've got a criminal.
Is Jack in? I'll try do. He was in the gallery, sir. Still holding this.
Extraordinary. The roof's still up. Swore it fell on me. Get in there, but don't show me. Wait.
Now, here's an interesting thing. If you go online and check, you can actually download a paper model of the Panopticon from this episode. Yeah. I've had a look. You can get it. I might do it. I might make a Deadly Assassin Panopticon.
Will that appear on another YouTube channel nearby?
It might, yeah. Yeah, well, very, very much. See, things like this, you look, this is what I was on about. See, the perspective isn't quite matching. You can kind of see this perspective of the floor, which is leaning like this.
Yeah.
All right, I'll confess. Very sensible.
You could do all sorts of stuff with this. You could really just
There are 15 in
dial it up to the nines.
Slides, Doctor. At the moment, you're only experiencing level 9. Much easier to talk. Got nothing to say. You'll think of something soon.
I love that guy's little smirk as he turns it up. It's just like, you.
Truly, I must apologize for myself already. It is enthusiasm ran away with me.
Yeah, he enjoys his work.
The hot and cold technique. We are simply seekers of the truth, and we have not much time. Chancellor Duff has ordered your immediate trial. I'd like to help you. How about a signed confession? Thank your help. I hate going home without possessing the full facts. Motive for this. Now that's a sensible question. Why should anyone want to assassinate a
I really do like this character as a castle. He's very Perry Mason to me.
Yeah.
He's not willing to accept it just because, you know, oh, he's willing to confess, is he? Alright, okay, there's something wrong. If it's so easy to offer it up, there's something wrong.
About 3 hours to live.
Well, that's monstrous.
Vaporization without representation is against the Constitution. You are an embarrassment.
You realize I've been framed, but
Yes, framed.
it's an awful expression. It means that someone's got to go to the top of getting me into this mess
Right? Come back here.
to try and save the president's life. You remember how you conduct,
Yes.
which presumably you knew nothing about.
All that I could. So you knew the president.
Yeah, see, like, if you look at it, his mask, his headwear there, he's got this sort of braid that goes around it.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the Gallifrey and braid going around their headdress, sometimes there's sort of paint missing, whereby literally they've taken the head, sprayed it, and just put it down, and then it's been wiped off, 'cause it's been used later, and somebody's picked up and rubbed the paint off it, and they haven't touched it up.
He knows that, and he knows that we know it, and yet he maintains it happened.
And that's why you believe it.
I'm begging him to.
Nobody else will.
I think he's being framed.
Framed?
I love the way he says it as well, framed.
Check for me where the doctors believe.
He's confident in what he's saying, like, you know. He just learned this new term, and now he's using it with full gusto.
Extraction is impossible without operating key like this, and the code of the particular key is recorded here.
So this part of the story
The data extraction
is where I want to talk a little bit about
is the only one
the Timeless Children,
who's deep.
And how many of those
because unfortunately this is clearly the time period which Chris Chibnall is most familiar with,
Except there are some
and he's using the fact the Master knows the Matrix really well
things we have no idea of the
to play into that story, and it's all the stuff from this episode that he is using to add on to that material.
You mean to
Uh,
trick the Doctor into believing he's got more incarnations because William Hartnell was the first?
And
Ender.
again, he used Brain and Morbius. It even pops up in the episode, for God's sake. It's he's using. Here's what I think he's done. He likes these episodes. He's watched these episodes, and as a kid, he formed his own ideas as to who the Doctor was and why, you know. And now he is using his own stories as confirmation bias. He's writing his own scripts to please his own 10-year-old self. He's now writing what he thought as a 10-year-old into canon,
Yeah.
and it's not up to him. You're not adding to a narrative by overwriting history. You're not. This isn't about overwriting history. This is adding to it. You know.
I intend to avoid the dilemma by seeing this affair through before he takes office.
We're not learning any more about the Doctor here than we ever knew. We knew, we knew he was schooled. We knew he went to an academy. All we're learning is the name of his teacher, which is Barossa.
Later I went with Castellan Spaniel.
That really doesn't tell you any more about the Doctor.
Capsule had been transferred. The Rogan tracer immediately became active. I concluded the prisoner must have been in the vicinity sometime previous.
No. Well, apprehensive. He was looking around all the time we were talking. Then, just before the president appeared, he turned.
It's a shame you can kind of see their faces already penciled in on the paper, but never mind.
Never in all my years of attempts at the panopticon can I recall.
If you could confine yourself to this incident, sir. What happened next?
I caught him by the arm to remonstrate with him. He shouted, "Let me go, they'll kill him."
Are you perhaps not?
What?
Are you perhaps getting a little hard of hearing? Yes.
Well, my age.
Yeah, you see that the paint's rubbed off, and he's rubbed makeup onto his.
Yeah.
Could the accused have said, "Let me go"? Ah,
Well,
Look how shiny Goth is.
he could have said that.
has the accused anything to say before sentence is pronounced? Yes. Article 17. Article 17. I offer myself as a candidate for the presidency.
I didn't see that coming, did I?
Yeah.
I invoke Article 17 of the Constitution, which is a guarantee of
See, now he's changed his outfit. He's now wearing his burgundy trousers instead of the
no candidate
tweed.
for office shall in any way be debarred or restrained.
He's now in his much more swashbuckling outfit.
The of liberty does not extend to murders.
And I gotta be honest,
No, good at that look.
yeah. And I really do love that version of the Doctor. This version. And it's understandable because like, they've changed his outfit now because this is sort of a bit more action-packed. And not right now, but it's going into a bit more action-packed story. Where he's going to get into like fist fights and there's actual stunts going to take place and things like that. So
See that the accused gets no opportunity to leave the capital. Yes. 48 hours, Doctor. Well, it's better than 3. What I'm going to do? Suppose I can convince you. All right. Convince me. The trial was a trial, Master. It pleaded Article 17.
I mean, like, you know, they must have emptied the BBC studio to build these sets because these are quite impressive sets.
Set, is it?
Well, again, it's not just the Panopticon series. You've got all the corridor sets. You've got these background sets. You've got the Matrix sets. You know, and I didn't say some of them were probably rejigged because they probably shot at different times, so they probably were just sort of taken down and reassembled. Yeah, there it is. Little gas cylinders there on the side of the gun.
Same stores up. See that symbol at the end of the corridor? What about? You try and hit it. What? Go on. You try and hit it.
I just don't like that prop. I'm sorry, I just don't. I can't abide by it.
Miles away. Besides, so you see, I couldn't have shot the president if I tried. And equally, I couldn't hit the assassin. That's why they refused. The assassin, according to you, being one of the High Council. Yes. Yes, he was in the party surrounding the president. I saw him draw a stage and he stepped forward. I imposed at him the third time, I didn't know the size of it. One of the High Council is getting better and better. What is it? Your story. Still a story. Where's the evidence? I tell you the evidence is well. In the public register camera, I'm standing right beside you. Doctor, you may yet stand up as president.
So yeah, I mean, this is a mix-up now of sort of the assassination story, a whodunit story, and a bit of a sort of a detective story as well. So it's all it is very well put together, the story.
First, want the panopticon open at this end? For further investigations. I see. Well, if there is anything further to be discovered, Castellan. Thank you, sir. You're keeping a close watch on the doctor, I hope.
Make a Doctor Who spin-off series called Castellan and have it be like a Columbo,
Myself, he is the only other candidate.
Gallifrey and Columbo.
A murderer unrenegated. It exposes the highest office in the land to ridicule.
He would be good. He would be good.
It'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Agreed to have Cardinal Barroso draft an amendment to Article 17. I shall see that this sort of thing never happens again.
See, look at that set. I mean, they've added in that. Jesus Christ.
I forgot about that.
I love the fact that they've gone on the headdress as well.
All I want to see is the last scene.
But why would Gallifreyans be
Is that
using a
bit
chalk
you were
outline?
talking about?
Yeah.
Splendid.
Why would they be using a chalk outline? They're millions of years ahead of us.
Because I
Millions
know
of
one
years.
day in the future, one Saturday night, they'll make a Welshman laugh.
Literally, millions of years ahead of us, and they still use a chalk outline.
And they go around the headdress.
And they go around the headdress. That's brilliant. It's like, what's it called? Do you know Naked Gun? When you go that, where there's that scene of the explosion, and it's like somebody's drawn on a foot on the wall. But yeah, you could do so much good stuff by just special edition in this. That's one of the best screams. How is that not a meme? How is that not a... Yeah, police squad, yeah. I forgot I can actually show comments. There you go. Action Man. See, we've got the Action Man grip fist.
Yeah. I wonder if he's got eagle eyes.
Probably.
No wonder we couldn't find it. I've never seen anything like it. You have? Yes. The master picked up some of his travels. Who was the master? Who was the master?
See, this is what I like with this story. They don't know. They don't know who the Doctor is. They don't know who the Master is. These are just people. To them, oh, they live on a planet. Why would they know? I like it. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it is.
The masterpiece here on Gallifrey represents the final challenge. It explains why I was brought here. There are old scrolls to settle.
Love the lighting on Tom there as well.
Shut everything up.
It's not flat lighting. They actually shove in a bit of uplight into him.
I can tell when I see it. Thank you for it. All right, don't put it there. I want to know who we can tell you about this master.
See, it's good. One of the problems I have with Modern Who is the fact that he is super famous. He's this big sort of superstar Time Lord. And I don't like the Master for the same reason. It's just like all the Time Lords know who the Master is, and Rassilon's familiar with him, and Master Rassilon's familiar with the Doctor. And it's just like, come on, guys. Stop. The fans push these people into fame, but the people inside the story shouldn't know. No, he ain't regenerating. And again, they haven't addressed that really in the story, that the Time Lords can regenerate. So they're still making it up as they go along, but it's well done. It's well done.
Let's be honest though, I mean, most of the over the top regenerating, everyone regenerating every 5 minutes, that's a very recent thing.
Yeah, no, yeah, I know that, but I mean, like the hows and ways the Time Lord can regenerate. I mean, clearly they've shown that Time Lords can die just from being a normal execution.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. It's almost up to my standard. What's that?
The ABC control.
ABC.
Amplified catastrophic computation. Trillions of electrochemical
So even the Matrix.
continuous matrix.
The Matrix.
Repository of department downloads. At the moment there's an electrical scares made to the brain pattern, and these waves of impulses are immediately transferred to the...
I understand theory. What's the function?
And to monitor life in the capital. The use of these combined knowledge and experience to predict future developments.
Like the assassination.
For some reason,
And for some reason, this isn't used that much within when they reference Gallifrey. Like, this should have been used as part of the Time War to predict the Time War.
Yeah.
What it's done? We Time Lords are telepathic. That's simply a brain storage system. The Interceptor's forecast the president was to be assassinated, but beamed it into my mind. Is that possible? Yes, yes. You could do it. You said my deal is guy. Yes. You read a biography of him to be my next Gallifrey apprentices. Makes sense. Maybe. Like why? I told you. Because he has an old score to settle.
Doctor, I simply cannot believe that anybody could do what you're suggesting. How can
And again, this now verifies now just how much the Master is familiar with the Matrix.
If I went in there, I could discover the room to this.
I couldn't allow it. It's too dangerous. The psychosomatic feedback might kill you. It's never been done.
Well, it's better than being vaporized. And that's what's in store for me if I don't produce the master.
Then try. Right. All right. I know.
I want a button that does that. Just wherever the button is, like if it's in my kitchen or you press it and a bed comes out.
They're normally unconscious. I think there might be some thing. I'm quite sure.
Gently, no, no, never mind. Just turn this straight up to 10. And it's the first time as well you get to see the original plates for the slit scan.
Who'd have thought the Matrix would be in a quarry, eh?
I know, yeah. I mean, Rubber Gator. That doesn't look comfortable at all. Nothing about that scenario looks comfortable. Sliding down that just doesn't appeal to me at all.
That wouldn't be my first choice either. God bless the scarf.
Yeah. See, this is my point. This is what I was saying. This is now fought on Gallifrey between Time Lords and there's a samurai. I mean,
I've always assumed that this was been like a projection of the Doctor's mind.
no, it's not. It's the Master.
Well, he's been on Earth as well a lot.
Yeah, but again, it's inside the Matrix. It's. I just think that they could have gone a bit more alien with it.
Look, there's nothing.
And Goth is in there as well, mine. So it's. He's not been to Earth.
He's back. His brain must be an unusually high level of octane energy. What do you think it
They're from the time vortex. Look at that continuity from Doctor Who. I think that's the only time you see him without the actual master makeup on. And again, it's a human surgeon, a World War One guy walking around with a donkey or a horse. Again, this is why you would special edition it, because there's so many fun things you could throw in, and so many fun things you could do with this scene, particularly this part here, because you're inside the Matrix. It doesn't have to be broad daylight. It doesn't have, you can swap it from day to night. You can do all sorts of stuff. You could take it really direct, straight off the hinges. And there it is. End of another one. So, how are you enjoying this so far?
Yeah, it's good. I don't mind the Earthbound sort of like extension of the mind in the Matrix because
It's
both
just
the
the fact
Doctor
that
and the Master spent a lot of time on Earth.
it's just the fact that it's a bit human for me. It's just that at the time when they've done the production, and yeah, I can buy what you're saying, and it's just the fact that these are two aliens, and it's like the production team kind of forgot that they're two aliens. Because Gallifrey is it's not just the inside the Matrix here. It's Gallifrey as well. It's the news broadcasts. It's the rifle, the big TV camera. There's all that sort of stuff. If you tweak all that and make it a little bit more alien, and particularly with this nightmare sequence inside the Matrix, this would be something special. Like, it's already a brilliant story. Let's not do that. But if we just dehumanized it a little bit more, and
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying your points aren't valid. I was just trying to.
no, I can
direction.
rationalize it. It's just the fact that it makes it's a bit too human. It's a bit too, British TV. You're going to imagine if this was done in, say, like Star Trek or something like that. This would all be on an alien planet. It might be in a studio set, planet set or whatever, but at least it would be a very more alien environment. In particular, I'm thinking of things like like Man Trap in Star Trek, where they had the salt creature that was changing into different things on an alien planet.
Yeah.
There are better examples than that.
Yeah, I think that train may have been sped up a bit.
I think so as well. I'm not even convinced this is a proper Gallifreyan train.
It's an illusion. Dreams.
Like, that's a giant egg.
I deny this reality.
See, I think this bit's missing out of this. Because, like, why would you put a giant egg there if you're not going to follow that up? And it's a Matrix code. I've got a feeling this entire setup is supposed to be a bit more elaborate than what it is. And they either didn't have the money or the time to fully flesh it out.
Gallifrey and Vulture. We got me at it
Yeah.
now.
It's a Gallifreyan quarry, what are you on about?
Who's to say Gallifrey didn't have a samurai period or a steam train period?
There is no escape.
The samurais. I do love his outfit though. It fits with this tone of the episode. There you are, Gallifreyan clown. Also played by Bernard Horsfall. I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to say it. I'll let you fill that blank in. Like I said, this could have been like a Dalek spaceship that you could just put over the top and just it would be nice. It'd be something like digging stuff in from the Doctor's own nightmares, like. A cyber ship, anything. Don't get me wrong, the cool stunts and everything. It's just, these are the things I would tweak and change. I mean, it wouldn't take a lot to have somebody dress like Tom Baker, have them run around and reshoot some stuff.
No, if they do it as well as they did, what was it, the Power of the Daleks, the one we saw?
Destiny, Day of the Daleks.
Day of the Daleks. Yeah, if they do it as well as that, then yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I wouldn't do anything that wouldn't fit. I would do something that fit with the story and the script, not with the episode itself, so that you're following what the original story had to follow. I mean, so how much fun could you have with this whereby you just got random stuff happening? You know, you could be in the... Because, like, if he was going to really wanted to kill the Doctor, he's playing with the Doctor. 'Cause if he really wanted to kill the Doctor, he would be in a wide open salt flat where there wasn't any cover for miles around. But again, this is much more of the... This is much more like Mysterio playing with Spider-Man in Far From Home. Very similar. Yeah, my reality rules. I'm on a t-shirt.
I'll fight you in your reality, and it will be a pleasure to destroy you. Be on your guard.
It's an adrenaline response, and there's a massive blood spurt in him. I suggest he's preparing either to run for his life or to fight for his life.
I can't tell you. You are what is it back?
Presumably another man.
There's another living man in the Matrix.
I'm only speculating, Cassie.
Yes.
I do like that couple in the Castellan and the I don't know what his name is.
They do make a good duo.
Yeah. I think it's just class as a Time Lord, I think. Commander Hilred, is he? See, now we're going into Jumanji territory now. Original Jumanji.
Quite a while before Jumanji as well.
Yeah, about 20 years. About 20 years. Except that's not Robin Williams.
Well, bloody shooting skills with Stormtrooper, though.
Well, yeah. How many times did they do that pan and that crash zone before they went, no, that's good enough. Just sod it. Like I said, it looks good and it's kind of refreshing because they are outside the studio. Even though they are just in a quarry, there it is. Big rubber spider. Plays no part in the story whatsoever. All those Gallifrey and dandelions and buttercups. I'm not letting it go. I'm not letting it go. Yeah, drink all my coffee. That's the point. You make me thirsty, you know.
I bet it's not Gallifrey coffee.
No, it's not. He's right. I'm gonna need water. I have water. I do.
That come in useful, wouldn't it?
I mean, why would you like? This is an imaginary environment, so I'm not sure why that would be something that they would conjure. Speaking of a similar sort of scenario, the other day I sat down and watched Freddy vs Jason because I haven't seen that film in a long time, probably not since I went to the cinema to see it. And that does a similar sort of thing whereby they're fighting in the dream world. I'm not sure anybody would want to drink out of that anyway. It doesn't look like any sort of fast moving fresh water at all. Deadly game of cat and mouse.
I tell you what though, regardless of story and time and space and what have you, they found the perfect location for this game of cat and mouse, as you say.
Oh yeah. No, they look all the stuff again. When they execute stuff really well, they do a top job on it. Particularly in this time period, they're using all the right locations. You know that shot there where the grenade went off, they cut it to a white flashbang. So it wiped it out the screen just for a second, just to make it seem like a bigger explosion.
All right, Dad. A good try. But not quite good enough.
So says you, Indiana Smith.
Indiana Master.
Well, yeah, it's not a master, I'm afraid. Indiana Goth.
Yes, Master. I will obey only. This is what you will do.
Yeah, no, they've chosen a good environment to shoot in. They've chosen, and it's a varying location as well. It's you know, they've got a rockery, they've got this quarry type area, they've got all this foliage as well. You know, you could probably turn around and say, well, you know, if this is sort of all the Master's construct, then why is he allowing his cohort to be, you know, injured or not be able to heal? I don't think the Master cares. And I think that's one of the things I like about it is the fact that his minion is being hurt, and the Master's not doing anything to help.
Yeah, this is proper old school, nasty
just-
bastard master. Isn't
It's just he simply doesn't care. He's using it. If the guy dies, and that's it. He's quite.
The guy dies, he'll just find someone else.
Yep.
I'm very close to you, Doctor. You better start running. You hear me, Doctor?
My garden used to look like that. I think this is probably the most beaten up and torn down the Fourth Doctor gets.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I'm not an expert on blowpipes, but I'm pretty sure you should put a flight on the end of that. Again, I'm not an expert. I don't know. I've never fired one, but I'm pretty sure there should be something on there to balance it. Do you know what? Shall I Google it? I regret typing blowpipe into my internet search.
Yeah, go for it. Have a look.
Well, all the ones I'm seeing got a much longer dart with an actual flight on the back of it.
Yeah, but that's a Gallifrey phone. It's completely different.
Yeah, you know, it is, yeah. Thankfully, I'm relieved of those Google results. Because trust me, when I typed cockpit in, the image result was shocking.
Message from the Chancellor, sir. Like the Doctor brought it. So is it.
Yeah, all the results I'm seeing are darts about this long with a flight on the end.
Be over soon. Won't we all be on it?
Only a short flight with a little bit of feathering on the end.
Man existing. No data revealed. These bodies on the point of collapse now. Low blood pressure. Shallow respiration. Carbon dioxide increasing. Can't last much longer.
He's not having the best of days, is he?
Well, no, I mean, you know, what he really needs is a phone box so he can get out of the Matrix.
It's only a mental level. If the Doctor's losing, why can't we just go out?
It's not very simple. His adversary must have been in the Matrix many times before. Don't touch that. Sorry. He's created
Watch how super strong
a dream
the Castellan is now.
Doctor's got
Like we talking, you know, Henry Cavill would be proud.
He's a program that is expending energy and maintaining
It's a good little like
Doctor can employ
superhuman shove.
energy or defense. Get back! Get back!
Huh? Huh? Man of Steel type strength, that guy. He can bend steel bars in his teeth.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to mess with him, would you? Get back. Well, all the way over there.
Yeah. Your name's not down, you're not coming in. That's so weird. Like, why isn't he looking at like some sort of screen?
What do you want? Only your life, Doctor. Your life for my master. I make a bargain. No bargains. Show yourself, Doctor. Get it over with. You hear me? No. You show yourself first. Your real self. Very well, Doctor.
There's not many people get away with wearing a fedora. Or silver makeup.
All right, Doc. You win.
It's a bit. This little bit here is kind of. It's very reminiscent of Kirk vs. the Gone.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Da, 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 da.
I know it's a different episode, but I'll put 50 quad moves on the Doctor.
I really don't like the staging of this fight. I mean, that is definitely not Burn Paul's fault there.
No. Yeah, there's a lot of Star Trek similarities here.
Yeah.
You're finished.
There you go. And they got into a lot of trouble for that cliffhanger. A lot of trouble.
Yeah.
The
You
idea
did
of
not like that, did you?
no, well, a lot of people didn't. It's the idea of leaving it on the fact that he was being drowned. I mean, I think they've done other endings to Doctor Who whereby he's been in difficult situations. I don't know what to make of that though. I mean, is it better
I think it's because it's the actual hands-on.
Yeah, it could be. He's not going to hold his breath till next week. I mean, it is quite a violent act, so yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that fight, the way the fight is shot, could have been shot a little bit better. Still, like still decent quality stuff. And it's probably the most action you're going to see out of a Doctor Who for, fight wise, nothing, bare knuckle wise. I've got to be honest, I don't think we get to see the Doctor be that violent again.
Just talk too much. Oh, it's all energy. It's all nonsense. Master, what are you doing?
We must track him in the Matrix.
No, Master, no. For pity's sake. The connections. You'll kill me.
I've no time to waste now.
See? He doesn't care.
But the circuits are brilliant. If there's a fire, the whole penetromic net, thousands of brain patterns will be destroyed forever.
But they are not alive. The doctor is, I hope.
Lovely exit.
It's all right, Spencer.
The smoke with the crossfade. It's just like a magic trick. He just disappears. It's lovely.
Mind? This is an unsmoking department. Ah, yeah? How do you feel, Doctor? Hi.
Yes, we got the best. We put quite a bit in there.
Should see the other one. Who is the other? Ooh, Goff.
You say God, the chance.
Oh, yes. The Master's red man. He's the assassin, Inspector.
That's why he wanted to be
It's good the fact that the puzzle is now coming together now and all the bits are starting to fall into place.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Lord, my TARDIS to be trying to stop him for Gallifrey. You are still inside.
Like with the audience have put it together. The audience knows what's going on from the end of the last episode. So now it's good that the characters are starting to piece it together. And it's not normally like on a whodunit mystery. Normally the characters are ahead of. If this was like Murder She Wrote, Jessica Fletcher would figure it out before the audience. Whereas here the audience is already in on it. Now we get to see how they piece it together.
Yeah, he's very well written.
Yeah. You see, this shots like this that I would have redone as well, whereby you've got that big black curtain in the background. You can just take that out and just put a massive corridor in there, and you can just really sort of just zhuzh it right up.
Why did you do it? So you killed him. What was his plan, Goff?
Here we go into a bit more of the Time of mythology.
What was his plan?
And this makes the Master seem more powerful as well.
Yeah, it does.
What was
You know, he's literally said like I can't fight his mental dominance. He's tried resisting the Master's power, and we've seen that previous episodes whereby he's hypnotized people, but that really means like mental dominance. He's using extra power.
collapsed and died, leaving chance of God still connected to the cell.
Natural cause.
Yes, sir. His body was extremely emaciated. He had come to the end of his regeneration cycle.
No.
Your story is not acceptable. This is a very difficult, very delicate position. We must adjust for truth.
Like with Barossa there, they cast a guy that's
How many people have seen this?
Zach.
Apart from ourselves here and the two guys who took the body to the battlefield board.
Then we shall rely on their silence. We shall change the appearance of the corpse, Castellan. We all know the posthumous effect of the stays about. Within the hour, the body will be charred beyond recognition. Our story is going to be that the master arrived.
Like, he's very bureaucratic.
Before he could escape,
You're gonna cast somebody as a politician, like they did a good job.
unfortunately perishing with himself in the exchange for power. Now that's much better. I can believe that.
You're beginning off into a hero.
If heroes don't exist, it is necessary to invent them. Good for public morale.
And the doctor's part in all this.
Best forgotten. Of course, Doctor, the charge against you will be dropped. Conditional on your leaving Gallifrey tonight.
Somehow, Cardinal, I will promise.
Good. I believe you know something of the Master's past.
We bump into each other from time to time.
Oh, why is they for
Indeed, you can assist coordinator Amy to compile a new bio document. It doesn't have to be time.
Like Time Lord history.
A few facts, coordinator, will lend it very solidity. You cannot make the Master into a public enemy for his nature.
I understand the Lord making
Yes, and just because this episode says that Time Lord history is made up doesn't mean to say Chris Chibnall can change what we know.
You cannot have Time Lord DE simply vanishing. Well, I think that's all. You'll attend immediately to the cosmetic treatment. Sorry. The body has to.
Only in mathematics will we find truth. What? Barusa used to say that during my time at the academy. Now he's setting out to prove it.
But yeah, I think they could go back and do something really sort of spectacular with some of the setups.
Commander Henrik, Sector 7.
Jump for you.
There's a lot of locked off shots in this, so you could do a lot with that.
What about his character? Doctor, could you please be a little more specific?
Yes. He was evil, cunning and resourceful. How he developed powers of the SP and a formidable hypnotist. The more I think about it, the less likely it seems.
What?
Well, if the Master would meekly accept the end of his regeneration cycle, it's not his style at all.
That's something we must all accept, Doctor.
Not the Master. Yeah, he had some sort of plan, that's why he came here. I mean,
After the 12th regeneration, there is no plan that will postpone death.
he had a plan. Something to do with Goth becoming the president. What's so special about the president?
He's simply an elected Time Lord, usually from some senior position. He holds the symbols of office. Otherwise, he's no different from any other Time Lord. It's relics from the old time. The sash of blessing.
I think there's a story to be told here for Time Lord. I think I would like to see maybe a Doctor Who spin-off, just a one-off TV movie, like the early days with Rassilon and Omega, where they're talking about this, where going into the black hole, coming up with the Eye of Harmony, all this sort of stuff. I think there's enough there that you could actually do a really good sort of prequel story.
No, sir.
Right, no, we will all recommend to anyone.
The sort of the foundation of the Time Lords.
We found this in the Atherton, under the chair where the body was.
Empty. Enough places to analyze, no doubt. Thank you, Commander. And report back after you've restructured the Master.
Today we
Unfortunately, I'd have to wait for Netflix to do it. I wouldn't want BBC to do it.
mainly as an engineer and an architect, because it was long before we turned aside from the barren.
Well, let's be honest, I think if the BBC done it, they'd ruin it now.
Well, I mean, the good news is it looks like things are changing at the BBC, so it looks like it won't be long before it's going to be defunded and go to a subscription base.
Now Rassilon found the Eye of Harmony, which balances all
There you go. Here's a real clear shot of all the glue.
Changes the navigations, and he caused the eye to be brought to the world of Gallifrey, wherein he sealed
It's not a bad set considering you know what they were dealing with back then.
then the people rejoiced.
It's an ebonite rod carried by the president on 7 or 11 occasions. Its actual function, if it ever had one, is a complete mystery. Was it to end the panel?
I mean, it is just like a lot of Christmas lights and things like that, but it's done well.
Oh, that's held by the president. That stays in his possession.
What a stupendous scientist.
Who? The master.
He'd have destroyed Gallifrey, the Timelords, everything. Just for the sake of some cigar.
Seems that the master didn't die from electric causes, huh? He killed himself. Careful, it's poison.
Try coffee and alcohol.
They're doing it up.
It's not even time. Spandrew came through. What? Last night.
It's not dead.
I'm just a little bit mistaken.
Dun dun dun. I'm sorry, those eyes just get me. They're just. It is creepy. I'll give it that. It is creepy looking, and the fact that it doesn't blink is also a bit creepy looking. It's just a shame that they're ping pong balls, and they don't move.
Watch this, Ray.
The master is gone. Master's in the swing of the ritual. This is what
I wonder if you could get an action man with that outfit.
on your quest. You delay an execution before the wing can fly.
I think what might have been a little bit more successful with that makeup, is if he had a little bandana over the mouth,
Yeah,
like a little bit just hiding that part of the face.
or completely covered like Doc was when he was in the Matrix.
I mean, you could go that far, but I mean, if you're going to do that sort of makeup and you want to show some of it, I think that might have been a bit more successful.
But how good would that makeup have looked if they'd have had a dark face covering, but was also slightly translucent, so you could see some of the features?
Yeah,
I think that would have made it doubly creepy.
Don't give him the sachet.
I don't know which part of decay gives you fat fingers, but
Why have you brought me here?
and now he regenerates into Peter Davison. It's kind of the Masters makeup and outfit. It's kind of like a budget Masters of the Universe Skeletor.
Yeah, isn't it? Well, for the film version.
Yeah, they couldn't get Frank Langella. Like it's just.
And we can meet you if you release a force that will obliterate this entire star system.
You're really free. But of course I
Yeah, scaled on a budget.
Realize what rested on me, what the eye of harmony is.
I mean, Peter Pratt was handed a rough deal anyway, but
And the Isle of Harmony is a myth, it no longer exists.
Expander, all the power of the Time Lords devolves from it. Now the fuck
You wait for another 4 regenerations, you know all about the Eye of Harmony then.
Rested on
Yeah.
all the elements of the black hole and set them in an eternally dynamic equation against the mass of the planet. The master interferes. It'll be the end not only of this world, but of undying works too.
so I kind of like all that with the having to place the rod in there and that. They could have done something other than just flip switches, handles, and pipes. They stuck with the budget, mind, so.
Got to get out of this place. There's a light up there. Where is that? The expander? The panopticon. I know it's saying
There's no big triangular opening there. I'm surprised I didn't try that.
Yeah. And again, they could have put like an insert shot in of the actual shaft, so you get a full appreciation of how big. Because they always do that. So look up there. Look, this must be 200 feet. Show it. Show it. Don't talk about it. It's good tension building though, I'll give it that. This part of the story is very good for tension building.
What's that? If the doctor's right, the end of the world is approaching.
I'm not sure keeping breeze box in a shaft is the safest option.
No. You can drop in like bits of dust, things like that, like, you know, just have stuff, you know, it just coming down. Actually shake the picture a bit more violently. Or build up to a more violent eruption. Intercut it with the scenes of the Krypton destruction from Superman the movie. What is it? I can never understand. Huh?
Yeah, as you say, they probably could have done with an overdub there.
Yeah. There's a good stunt bump coming up here. Oof. That's not a bad form.
No.
For Doctor Who, that's pretty Hollywood. And that's the end of the Master. We shall never see him again. Ever.
Half the city in ruins, untold damage, countless lives lost.
The doctor, it could have been much worse.
Yes, indeed, I am conscious of the debt we owe the doctor. But Gallifrey has never known such a catastrophe, such devastation. What will we say?
Well, you'll just have to adjust the truth again. What about some sirens going to a blade of knife?
As I believe I told you long ago, Doctor, you will never amount to anything in the galaxy while you retain your propensity for vulgar facetiousness.
Listen, you've said that many times. May I go, sir?
Certainly you may, preferably with the utmost expedition.
I like this little touch here. The Catalan.
Doctor, 9 out of 10.
Yes, that's lovely. He's been so rigid and bureaucratic right through his throat, and then all of a sudden he just turns around and gives him that nice little cheeky little nudge. Like, you know, he is proud of him.
If by some miracle he survived the conformity to that castle, he was dying, wouldn't he?
Good deal of power coming out of that mountain. The sash would have gotten there. I was suggesting that somebody. I hope not, Spaniel. And there's no one in all the galaxies I'd say that about. The quintessence of you. Goodbye, sir. Goodbye. Goodbye, Doctor.
Okay. So that's all been fabulous. Now, oh, they could have done without this bit tacked on.
Look, the master. Really, out of the universe. No, I have a feeling it isn't big enough for the two of
Oh dear God.
Yeah.
It didn't need that. So,
The whole bit you think that should have ended then when the Doctor closed his TARDIS door.
yeah, exactly. There was no, that bit on the end was just,
So I tell you how I would have done that bit on the end. I wouldn't have had the face in the clock. I would have had the Doctor's thing, the Doctor's TARDIS dematerialised. I'd have had them two walking off, and then I just would have cut back to that grandfather clock out of place and just done a TARDIS dematerialisation effect, then gone to the titles. No talking, certainly no superimposed pinball-eyed face, and done it like if it needed to be on there, it should have been a lot less.
the problem is that it's a really good story, and execution wise it's pretty solid all round. Again, it's the one episode I would definitely do a super special edition on. Again, I'd want to refilm stuff. I'd want to just rejig stuff up, just to, because it's like a 8.5 out of 10 story anyway. Like, just, and you know, by doing a super special edition on it, you're not going to change the original. You'll always have the original. It's just the potential is there. If you were to go by what it says in the script, and do that, you know, they're on Gallifrey. What does Gallifrey look like? You've got all the, and there's a lot of locked off shots whereby you can drop stuff in the background to make the city look, you know, kind of similar to what they did with Cloud City in Empire Strikes Back, where they took some of the walls out and put in, you know, windows out into the city. You could do stuff like that with this, where you could literally see out into the citadel and things like that. You could even do an external shot of the city, so you could actually, you know, put that into it. So there's all these things that you could add in, and then get rid of that bloody end, because that it's so cringeworthy.
I'll
But
tell
anyway,
you what, before we get off the subject of external shots of Gallifrey, I don't like the modern look of Gallifrey at all. I'm going to find a picture, so I won't be able to see you from it. I'm going to see if I can find a picture, and I'm going to show you what it makes me think of every time I see it in the modern story. So I can still hear you and that, I just can't see you on the screen at the minute.
Yeah, that's no problem. Because I don't mind it. but I'm going to show you something as well. Where's it to?
This is going to be a tough one to find, I think.
Oh yeah. So yeah. No, I don't mind the modern version of Gallifrey. There is a fan one out there. That somebody did, and it had like all the death zone and everything as well. So I'm trying to find that.
Yeah, I often find things like that when the fans do a reimagining.
Yeah, no. Sometimes they do things. It's just like, you know, that's a bit better than how they've done it in the show.
Right, do you remember? I've found a picture now. Do you remember a cartoon series in the 80s called Jason the Wheeled Warriors?
Yes, I do.
Right, whenever I'm going to share a screen, whenever I see the new Gallifrey,
Mhm.
I always think of Saw Boss's base
Yeah.
from Jason, and that's every time I see it, that's what I think of.
Yeah. I mean, like, I kind of, I think maybe that they could have done a bit more with the Citadel. I mean, we've only seen like one of the cities on Gallifrey, and I think that maybe that's a problem, because we've only ever seen Arcadia, right? We
Yeah.
haven't seen any other city other than Arcadia. So I think that maybe that there's an opportunity there to do other things, because it's, I don't know, I do kind of like it, the fact that it's over this huge sort of Sarlacc pit. It's not a Sarlacc pit, but we just, I don't know
Yeah,
what it's
we'll
supposed
just
to be.
we'll just brush over that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Um,
going back to the Deadly Assassin.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why I would do it, is because the fact that you know, I wouldn't necessarily do like how they done it with the modern one, with all the gold hairdresses and everything was red and gold. That's all it was red and gold. I wouldn't do that. But like, there's so many things that you could do with the backgrounds and everything to just, you know, to just kind of fill in the vision that the script originally started with. Because I'm trying to get a picture up of the aha. Let me just do this, just so you can see what I'm talking about. Screen share. There you go. Paper panopticon. Or paper opticon.
Yeah, or yeah, panoptic, paper panopticon, or papeopticon, whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, I've had a good look at these. All these little sections that you can make. Looks quite good, actually. It does look quite good.
Thing is, though, I know what you're like, and I know that if you print that out to make it, you're going to end up sticking it on styrene, and then you're going to end up gluing them together,
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
there'll be greebles.
Yeah.
Do it.
No, I mean, I would love to sink into this episode and have a if I could get hold of a higher quality print of this episode, of, you know, the like original negatives and things like that. Oh, I would do some stuff with this, because it does look fabulous. Like if you, let me just. Oh, what am I doing? So open something I shouldn't have opened. So if I go, no, there. I mean, look at the Panopticon set. That's far more impressive than what they've done with the new one.
Yeah, it is.
Far more impressive. And again, some of this top as well has been matted in. This whole top section, up, you know, the whole ceiling, is all been matted on afterwards. You know, it's. But it all works well for what they did, and you know, it's a 2-story set. You've got this little rostrum going around. It looks really good, and I like the fact again. I like the fact that they've gone with all these green colours for Gallifrey as opposed to what's typical. And I guess maybe that's one of the things that I don't like about the new interpretation of Gallifrey is that everything is red and gold. Whereas I've never really thought. Maybe I was corrupted by this episode a little bit as a youngster, because I've always thought of Gallifrey like the Emerald City of Oz. So when I do see, that's how I see it in my head really. It's probably because of this, because every time I've seen Gallifrey, it's always been green. So to see it now in the modern series, whereby again people are wearing red robes and gold headdresses, and they've got a gold city, and I think maybe that is something I would possibly change myself. I'm trying to find there's a fan picture.
But while you're looking, you know, at the beginning, you were saying about the title of the program.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually found a quote from Robert Holmes himself. Because the people are saying, you know, the title's generally considered a tautology because an assassin, as you said, by definition is deadly.
Yeah.
And apparently Robert Holmes was asked about it, and he said, well, there's plenty of incompetent assassins. So it's a fair comeback.
Well, yeah, but they're still deadly. Just because they're incompetent, it doesn't make them less deadly. If they could kill you, they would.
And the other thing, you know, I was saying about it was nice that they're still using the imagery of the Seal of Rassilon today.
Yes.
Well, apparently, according to the thing I've got, Roger Murray Leach reused his symbol from Revenge of the Cybermen as the Seal of Rassilon.
Yeah. It was the Seal of Voga. Yeah. Yes, it was the Seal of Voga it was originally, and it was just like, let's reuse that. So here's a fan done image. So like, yeah, and this I think is a bit more to your taste maybe for Gallifrey. So it's following on the same sort of vibe. But it's a bit more fantasy.
Yeah, I like the way that it's kind of closer to the ground and then domed over, rather than having a big circle.
It's not a Christmas tree ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also like the fact that the ground is got this, like, it's over a cracked canyon. It's like they built the city over a canyon. So
yeah,
it's not.
I like that. That's good.
It is quite nice. I do actually prefer that to the official one. And again, I'm not sure why they wanted Gallifrey to have a city in the desert. Because we do know that there are grassy areas of Gallifrey. So it's a bit odd. Maybe it has to be there. I don't know.
Don't get me wrong. The new one doesn't look horrible by any stretch of the imagination, but it just evokes Sawboss's base from Jason.
Yeah. No. It's just the fact that, like, if we, let me just, that's not how you spell it, but never mind. So let me just pull up a picture of Gallifrey. Oh, what am I doing here? There we go. So, let me swap this out for. Oh. So many windows open. There you go. So, I mean, it's Bottled City. I mean, it's kind of, it's falling back on some old sci-fi tropes, but it's sort of Bottled City of Candor. It's, again, very Flash Gordon. It's got this retro style into it.
It is, but the way they've done it,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the top there, you've got
With
that
the nipple.
circular dome, the nipple, whatever you want to call it, and then at the side you've got these two uprights coming up at the side.
Yep.
But it makes it look flat or flatter halfway down. They should have two of them on the other sides as well, because it kind of looks round at the top. It looks like it goes round into sort of like a flat bottle shape.
Yeah.
Did you see what I mean?
Yeah. I think I would have got rid of the dome anyway. I don't understand why you'd need the glass bubble. You know, I don't think you really need it. I think that it would work. I think if you got rid of that and just had the city itself, that would be more than enough. I mean, they're gonna have to rebuild and reinvent Gallifrey as it is now. So there's potential going forward. There's potential that it could be changed.
Great spaceship parked on top of it for starters, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, again, I don't like the fact that it's a single. I mean, obviously, it's part of when they came to rendering it. It was far easier to just render it all with one texture. You know, that they just built this model. They stuck this texture on to make it look like a metal, so it looked like it was all. And they covered the entire city over there, so it just greebled it really, really quick, and they were able to do it really fast. Get the render out in time for the shot. So I totally understand that. I'm not a fan of that. Like, did you ever watch like Stargate Atlantis?
I wasn't that big a fan of Stargate Atlantis. I've seen the first series.
Oh.
I bought SG1. I've got the whole lot on DVD.
Yeah.
I bought the entire series of that as it was released. I thought that was that good.
But no, I enjoyed Stargate Atlantis, but it's a similar sort of thing whereby you've got this isolated city that's only built in this one location. There's nothing else outstretching from it. It's just, you know, so a similar sort of scenario. And I think that does it a little bit better because there's a bit more variety there. Whereas this is, I like the retro sci-fi to it. So I do like that, but again, yeah, I would get rid of the glass dome.
I mean, I'll tip their hat to them that, like you've said, that looks very Flash Gordon.
Yes.
And we've said throughout this, the start of this episode, it was very Flash Gordon. So they've got the right vibe for it, but it's just, don't know. I don't hate that. I think it's a great model and what have you. It's just something about it. I think it's the way the glass looks, making it fun for me.
Again, though, for my vision of Gallifrey has always been, again, probably clouded and contaminated by Deadly Assassin, that I've always thought of Gallifrey as being a bit green. Maybe it is just like a Wizard of Oz type thing, I don't know.
It could well be.
But that's really how I've... I mean, it always pulls from different sources. Anyway, Doctor Who, so... But yeah, anyway, back to talking about Deadly Assassin. So, Peter Pratt had to do his best job under that makeup. That last part with the... Ian's got to go. See you next time. Okay, Ian. Yeah, take care, man. And next week we are doing Face of Evil. So, that's the next one. So, enjoy. And hopefully you join us next week. Yeah, so Peter Pratt having to act and all that makeup. That last scene going off where he's fighting the Doctor, that they really should have redubbed that.
Yeah, definitely. That's what the worst. I mean, I let that whole thing play out before I commented on it, and it's like, yeah, that definitely needs an overdub because you could hardly understand what he was saying, and plus, especially with us having the sound on low, so we don't upset the copyright gods.
Yeah.
It was really difficult to hear what was going on with that bit.
Yeah, and again, it is. It's Doctor. And yeah, I mean, they could have redubbed that anyway. He's under so much makeup, you can't see his lips moving. So a little bit of overdubbing wouldn't have hurt anyone at all. And again, that's another reason why I would redo it. Is because if you can get all the original sounds, everything like that, you could get another actor in or an impersonator or somebody that can do that voice, and just have a crisp, clean track. Even if you've got a dub right from the start to the finish. I mean, redo the entire performance. But the good thing is that with that master is the fact that most of the time it was isolated. He was shot in his own camera.
Yeah.
So you've hardly ever seen that master interact with anyone. Even at the point whereby he's got a gun on the doctor, the camera is framed with him by himself. So you could reshoot the entire thing with a master and drop it all in and just re-edit it back into the episode and make it a nice new, fresh, clean performance, clean recording, and just give it, because to me it's just that it's the story that deserves better than the treatment that it got. That's my complaint. Look, to me it's still 8.5 out of 10, easily. I'm taking minor points off for execution, whereby, again, it's just because it humanises the Time Lords. I don't like. I would prefer to see the Time Lords a little bit more godlike, instead of what we ended up with. I mean, where do you stand on the Time Lords, Chris? Where's you sort of? How would you like to see? Because I'm thinking of the Time Lords going back to war games. And now we see them here, and then we get news broadcasts and assassins' rifles, and where would you stand with the Time Lords? Like, how would you want to see them presented?
Well, I get what you're saying about them being humanised, and that was very Earth-like with the news recording. That I like how pompous they are and how they think they're better than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
When they did the towards the end of Tennant's run, when they had like Timothy Dalton as Rassilon and that,
Yeah.
like that, because they seemed otherworldly and big. The way it was done, I mean, they still had the great big, parts of their dress on that.
Yeah.
I probably would have not made it quite so orange, but yeah, I prefer them to sort of be something bigger. They're this all-knowing, all-seeing, ancient race, and yet, like you say in this one, apart from a bit of silver paint, they were very very middle-class British, weren't they? In the way it was executed.
That's my problem. Is the fact that it was very much a Westminster.
Yeah.
They could have set this in Westminster, and that's what this was. You had these, because I love the Castellan, and I love Barossa. The character of Barossa is, and particularly when he gives the Doctor that little bit of a, that little bit of rub at the end, where it's like this is the most terrible, awful thing to ever happen. By the way, 9 out of 10. So I like that.
I mean, they could have used the cast of Yes Minister, and it wouldn't have made a sort of difference.
Exactly. That it's so much of a, and again they ripped from the Mancunian Candidate. This sort of brainwashing type storyline, with an assassination attempt and things like all this sort of stuff. They don't have Angela Lansbury in it. That's not their fault, but and unfortunately they are missing that character from this story, because her character in Mancunian Candidate was this really sort of bitch queen. She was kind of like first movie bitch. You can't imagine Angela Lansbury being that way, but she was, and she was brilliant in it.
I'd just like to say for the record, everyone thinks of Angela Lansbury for Murder, She Wrote. I don't. I think of Angela Lansbury from the picture of Dorian Gray when she was really young, and she
Oh.
was quite a fox as well.
That's going back a while. I
Well,
mean,
it's
a lot
about
of people.
1944, but that's
Yeah,
if someone says to me Angela Lansbury, I think of her as the actress that was in that when she was a lot younger. Because I don't
yeah.
things like Murder She Wrote and programs like that. I don't watch them because it's like, well, everywhere you go, there's a murder. You're the murderer. I've sussed
Yeah.
it.
But I mean, yeah, yeah. But her performance in Manchurian Candidate, she plays the soldier's mother, and her husband is a politician up for election to become a governor, and she is literally sort of this manipulator that is this mother, and she's doing things to her son, not really based upon his best interests, but about how she can gain a political edge with her husband. And it's honestly, she's one of those characters. She's so good at it. It's just like I want this bitch to come to a sticky end. And that's what I think. That's what's missing from this episode. There wasn't, because I think Goth could have been that sort of character, but he became the obvious. You know, he was the obvious villain for the Doctor in the Matrix. Speaking of the Matrix, we got to talk about it. How much of this do you think is, or how much of it influenced the Matrix? Because the idea is that these people get plugged into a computer where inside the computer there's a reality where almost anything can happen.
You have to think the Wachowskis, they were brothers, weren't they, when they made
Yeah.
that film? There's the sisters there, aren't they? You would have thought they'd had a look at it, wouldn't you? They've definitely seen this.
I mean, I've got to be. I don't know that much about them, so I don't. I'm gonna have a quick.
They were heavily into anime and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know, because they've both completely changed gender and they're different people now. I don't know what their outlook would be, 'cause they're supposed to be making another Matrix film, aren't they?
They have done, yeah. They have made a Matrix 4, yeah. It's coming up the same week as John Wick.
Oh yeah, Keanu Week, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
It's a
Bill
shame
and Ted's coming
that-
out that week as well.
No, Bill and Ted's out the 23rd.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a shame, because they should have held off and put it out the same week. I would have. I would have just to troll him. He'd be trolling his own films. So, American television directors, producers, both trans, collectively known as the Wachowskis. Early life career, found Wachowskis. So, 1993, wrote several issues. They also wrote a series of Clive Baker's Hellraiser. Deadpool. Neil Gaiman, Dave Gibbons, Paul Chadwick. I mean, they kind of, there's nothing here to say anything about the any influence from Doctor Who, but it's kind of it's not just the fact that it's the concept, it's the name itself as well, and the fact that it's so, if I was to tell you what happens in the Matrix movie, and then describe the Matrix from Doctor Who, we're talking about exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, the means is different with the human batteries in the Matrix and that, but the end result, the inside part, is bang on.
Well, again, it's not only that; it's the fact that there are thousands of brains inside the Matrix.
Yeah.
So, and playing out the reality that can be manipulated. So, it's very, very close. I think that's pretty much that covered. We've covered Peter Pratt. We've covered sort of Gallifrey and society.
This was the first episode not to feature a companion, and also
Yeah.
the first episode to not feature any human beings. You know, actual people from Earth. Then.
So, not to throw anything into the fire here, but you will notice it's a very white cast. Based upon the time when this was made, it wasn't an issue. I don't think it's an issue today. I've got to, and here's why. When the problem with today's what we call representation on TV is the fact that when they were making this back then, there weren't as many people of colour, of any colour, not just black. We're talking Asian, Indian, living in the UK. There's a reason why those back then there were some. But it was mainly in larger city areas, less of you're hardly likely to find many black people living in Scotland. You're probably still not. But that's the way Britain was back then. It was like what 35 million people, a much smaller island, much smaller population, much less diverse than how it is
Yeah, I
today.
mean, you think about it now. I mean, the population then was, as you say, about 35 million.
Yeah.
I believe it's 66 million now. And
I
I mean,
think-
6 million of that's just London by itself. So yeah, it has almost doubled in the last 40 years.
Let's have a 67 million. So let me check population UK. I'm just gonna have a quick check. So it's gone up about 20 million.
That's still a lot of people.
That is a lot of people. Yeah.
You
But
know,
again,
20 million is what? That's 200 Wembleys full, I think. That's a
Yeah.
lot of people.
but again, that's my point. When it comes to diverse casting, and the other thing as well is that when I say that this story humanizes Gallifrey, the one alien thing that is about Gallifrey is that there isn't another culture in there. It's like the other cultures in Gallifrey have been bred out. There's a entropy has already taken its course on Gallifrey because Gallifrey is millions of years old. So therefore, that sort of part of the genome might have been because it's happening now with places like Denmark and Sweden and all that, whereby because people have been crossbreeding then with other, like they're expecting like a lot of the blonde people to be actually bred out, that they're going to be either ginger or dark haired. So genetically speaking, once entropy starts taking its course, then over millions of years, if we're talking, we're not talking about humans have been around for approximately in our current form about 150,000 years. Gallifrey's been around supposedly for like 4 billion years. So that genome has actually just strained itself out of any sort of diversity. So that tends to lend itself to that scenario. Unfortunately, these days, not really unfortunate, that's a bad way of putting it, but they've reintroduced diversity into the regeneration cycle. So now we've got people from all different sorts of life, and I find it a bit odd that I find it odd that the people who make this show are still sticking with all Time Lords look human, because I've never, to me, Time Lord is the academia. The Gallifreyan, but Time Lord is an academic status. It's sort of the ultimate university. So why you couldn't have an alien Time Lord?
I've never thought about that before. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, like there was rumours going back to when Sophie Aldred was playing Ace that the Doctor was schooling her to become a Time Lord. That he was going to take her to Gallifrey, and she was going to become a Time Lord. And she was going to get 2 hearts. She was going to get a regeneration cycle. She was going to get it all bestowed on her. So, and that's the way I thought Time Lords were. I always thought that there should be, a Sontaran Time Lord, a Silurian Time Lord. All these, there's no. To me, I don't understand why there isn't. I really, so to see it presented in present day, whereby they've gone, oh, aren't we clever? We've got a Chinese Time Lord, and I'm thinking to myself, you haven't gone far enough. You haven't thought enough outside the box. Where's where's the Kasarian Time Lord? Where's, this should be this whole, have Yoda there. That'll do. Have Yoda as a Time Lord. Just they haven't thought about how the Time Lord Society functions, because it's not a society. There's a Gallifreyan society. There's a Shibogan society. But the Time Lord is a university that is, what's the best way to put it? They've elitists. They become elitists then. They bring you into the Citadel. They bring you into Arcadia. They school you. They graduate you and everything. And your job then is you were then elevated through this elitist system to become a Time Lord. You lord over time. You then spend your time monitoring time. You spend your time looking throughout history. You spend all that stuff, and yet these days a Time Lord just seems to be a person walking around with a staff. There doesn't seem to be. I don't think they've, like, what's good about Deadly Assassin is the fact that it tried to introduce mythical elements into Time Lord past.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't think we get that now. I think what we get from the Time Lords now is a lot of hearsay and nothing else. And when you actually see them, they just wander in the corridors in the gold boots. Can you honestly, a genuine question, can you think of anything that they've added to the Gallifreyan Society since it's come back in 2005?
Not really. They haven't really, have they? I mean, all right, they've added diversity, but they would have added that more because they felt they had to, rather than any decent sort of plot point. Which I haven't got a problem with them having diversity at all. But that's pretty much all they've added, is the fact that now you've got, but they're Time Lords of different human races, as you say. Chucking in a few aliens. All right, a Dalek Cyberman. We've discovered that doesn't work. Not a Dalek Cyberman, a Cyberman Time Lord. A Dalek Time Lord probably wouldn't work either, but there's so many more things they could do.
I mean, there's lots. I mean, like you could have added. Imagine like Alpha Centauri. That type of alien as a Time Lord as well. There's this whole galaxy of characters that you can have in this arena, monitoring time and sitting around and make it look like sort of the European Union, the European Parliament, where they got all that circular seating all the way around and just all staggered, and they're all sort of like looking at. You could do that. You could make them be this sort of really crusty, bureaucratic types that but all of them arguing over things. But there's no narrative that I can think of has been added to the Time Lord mythology. I mean, there was the
I suppose the Time War was probably the only real thing that they've added.
It did, but that was a war between the Time Lords and the Daleks. That wasn't really about the Time Lords.
No, it wasn't. I'm just trying to think of things they added that weren't in the old series.
No, but that's what I mean. I can't think of anything that they've said about the Time Lords themselves. Like, they haven't said, oh, the Time Lords can do this. All the Time Lords can do that. All the Time Lords can do the only thing I can think of is the Timeless Children, and that's something I wish they hadn't had it.
It is a question, something, because perhaps I've forgotten something in the episode. When I mentioned Timothy Dalton earlier on, he was playing Rassilon.
Yes.
Weren't Rassilon one of the early Time Lords who wasn't even alive anymore?
So he was. I think he was resurrected for the Time War.
Right, okay. That must have been something I missed.
Yeah, I believe he was resurrected for the Time, because they resurrected him along with the Master. Because they needed somebody to fight in the Time War, because the Time Lords. Here's the thing: the Time Lords should have been. But this is my understanding, right? This is how the way I've taken it. The Time Lords should have been able to deal with the Dalek threat. Like, it shouldn't have even been a problem for them. But something has gone wrong, and I think they brought back the Master because they didn't know how to deal with the Daleks. Because they thought, right, they didn't want any blood on their hands, so they brought back the Master to deal with the Daleks and the Time War before it even kicked off. And he did something to the Time Lords that just took down all the defences. That's my understanding of it, because I don't understand how the Time Lords wouldn't have just crushed the Daleks out of existence. They could have. It's not. The Daleks are so beneath the Time Lords, and this is my problem with seeing, like, because this episode just makes people, you know, like, you can kill a Time Lord by stabbing him in the back with an axe. You shouldn't be able to do that, but you can. But there we are. So, again, it degods them a little bit. I've always put the Gallifreyans up a little bit higher than that. So, to me, what happened with the Time War was essentially on the Master.
Right, okay. That makes sense.
Because, you know, if you're looking at when things triggered the Time, we were not sure when it happened and things like that. But yeah, they brought back Rassilon, they brought back the Master, and that's what led to an insanity. Yeah, so it's a bit of a different take on Rassilon as well. But I mean, that's why I would like to do a Doctor Who spin-off, just a one-off, just set way back right at the start, before Arcadia was even built, and do the sort of the early story with Rassilon, Omega, and do all that sort of thing, and even do the story whereby Omega gets banished into the black hole, the whole kit and caboodle, finding the Eye of Harmony. It would be epic still. So it would be, you know, finding the Eye of Harmony, retrieving it out of the black hole, coming up with the sash, coming up with the whole changing the Gallifreyan society into the Time Lords, and, you know, doing all that, having the experiment that goes wrong whereby Omega's lost. I would love to do all that. That'd be bloody awesome. But yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things that I think that they could do. As for how the Time Lords are themselves now these days, the Master's destroyed them. We don't know how, all this stuff. A lot has been taken from this time period, this Tom Baker time period, and I mean, again, to me, it's what Chibnall has done is that he's looked at this time period, come up with all these fan fanfic as a kid, and is now using it as confirmation bias by just writing his own scripts to and go, oh look, see, told you, that's what I come up with when I was 10 years old, and the rest of us are just going, piss off, Chris. Not you, I mean Chibnall.
Right, that's it, I'm going.
Yeah, so that's this week. That I don't think unless there's anything more you want to add to Deadly Assassin.
I want to add how well written that was, because apart from the more action scenes, like when I was in the Matrix where he was being stalked,
Yeah.
there was so much dialogue. Me and you didn't talk as much as we normally do because there was so much to listen to in that, and that was a very dialogue-heavy story.
It was, and like look, it was a layered plot. It was a brainwashing story. It was a master season control story. It was a story of vengeance. It was a whodunit story. It was a setup story. And again, in most like Columbo's or something like that, the audience is behind the lead character. The lead character knows what's going on, and then it gets explained to the audience at the end. The difference is with this story, and what's clever about the story, is that we're ahead of the action. We're ahead. We know, we know who's behind it. We know who's doing it. We know how it's being done. We include all this in before the principal characters figure it out. And it's good because there's a couple of things that they could have done, whereby they could have turned the knife a little bit more, whereby we as the audience would have known. For example, if they hadn't revealed Goth, if they hadn't, if they made it somebody else, like if they made it Dunstable instead, that would have been different. That would have been a much different story. The news guy is actually doing it just to create the news, so that'd be brilliant. There's bloody Citizen Kane material there. You mix Citizen Kane with Manchurian Candidate. That'd be a good mix. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot in this. Again, this is not as well executed as last week's, but last week didn't have a story as strong as this one. If we took the execution from last week and put it into this story, this would now be the ultimate Doctor Who episode. It's just the fact that they tried. I'll hand them that. In 1976, they tried, but I think that they didn't go far enough to. Because even where they did push the boat out, and it didn't quite work, at least they were trying.
Yeah.
Whereas, I think this was safe execution, but it was a bit too safe. The story was a little bit further out, but the execution, like the hardest part, we've talked about this as well. The worst thing that they did in this entire story was to leave the cliffhanger on him being drowning. That's the hard. I mean, and this is probably the most action-packed in terms of fight scenes that I think the Doctor's ever done. I think
for the you talk about that cliffhanger. I think I should go on about that a minute because it was Mary Whitehouse that led to a lambasting of the show, and the negative reactions in the public. That's why Philip Hinchcliffe was replaced apparently for the following season. And only the BBC have wiped that from the master 625 line PAL master copy.
Yep.
Apparently Tom Baker suffers from acrophobia, so he was terrified while he was filming it, and apparently he visited a random family to watch the episode to see how the kids reacted to it. So there was quite a lot behind that cliffhanger, and it became quite a moot point by the sounds of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's. The thing is, it was one of those things. It was a kind of okay, that's a bit unsettling, because if you throw him off a cliff or something like that, that's been done before. We're talking about. When I say it's been done before, like if you go back and look at the cliffhangers that they used to do in the old Batman series, that sort of stuff has been done before. I mean, there was an episode of Batman whereby they did have him drowning, and that was the cliffhanger, but he was in like a coffin, so you couldn't actually see him. So, but to have the hero with the hands from the throat there underwater, that's quite a vivid image.
It is, but I mean, I've always been quite logical, even when I was a kid. Where it's like, well, it'd be all right because there's another episode next week, and it's still cool.
Oh,
so
obviously, but there's obviously he's going to get out of it. I think though what they were looking at was the actual image of it, though. The actual image of somebody being drowned.
Image, yeah.
and again, it's probably the most violent the Doctor's ever been. To be in a fist fight, a proper knockdown, drag out fist fight, for a couple of times. And I don't think it's ever happened again. I don't think we ever see the Doctor throw a punch again until Peter Capaldi.
Well, and funnily enough, Peter Capaldi was the very next time there was a episode that didn't have a companion, even though she appeared in it parts.
Yeah.
But he was on it. He was on his own. This was. I think this was the only time before then that this happened.
Yeah, I mean, like the Doctor's done other things, not necessarily. He's done things whereby he's pushed people out of the way and shoved people and done Venusian Aikido, that sort of very gentle stunt work, if you can call it that. But no, to actually have a slugging match. The Doctor's been clonked. People have punched the Doctor, but Slapnam punched the Doctor. But I don't think it's happened since that the Doctor's ever been in a sort of a barroom brawl.
No, not that I can think of either.
But it's good, and again, I do like the look of Tom in this episode as well. That swashbuckling look that he had going on, the sort of pirate boots, the crimson red trousers with a shirt, the white shirt. I thought it suited him really, really well. And then I like the fact that he got away from the scarf. Maybe it's because he wasn't with a companion that he got away from him. But I enjoyed it. Look, this episode is, for the most part, brilliant. For the most part, this episode is brilliant. And that's why I've said it before. That's why I would want to do a special edition of it. It's because I want to make it more special. To just tweak things here or there to make things look a little bit more suitable for the story. And then nothing else.
Never ever talk about the last 30 seconds again. Because I'd forgotten about that.
Well, honestly, can you see my point on that ending?
Yeah, I'd totally forgotten about that. I haven't watched some of these in sort of like 15 years. So little things like that, I've totally forgotten about.
I mean, like next week we're going to be doing Face of Evil, and to me, we're going that way again. It's not quite. We went up with a Hand of Fear, and sort of this episode kind of plateaued and had its little sort of rocky bits for that. And I think with Face of Evil, the execution of Face of Evil, it's a good story, Face of Evil, but it's a bit, why didn't you shoot this in an actual forest kind of deal? So it's gonna be a fun one, because it's a very interesting notion next week whereby we'll talk about it next week, but they built a forest in the studio. I think I don't really need to tell you what a BBC forest on an alien planet it looks like, built in television centre.
It looks like foam and polystyrene, Carwin, doesn't it? Let's be honest.
No, it looks like air conditioning ducts. So, air conditioning ducts and sand. It's an interesting one. Next week is interesting though. We get the introduction of Leela. So we get a new companion, very different from Sarah Jane. Do you think having Deadly Assassin was the right breathing space for fans? Because they've just said goodbye to Sarah Jane. You've had another 4 weeks of the Doctor by himself. Should they have waited a little bit?
I think that was good to do that, because they set it up at the end of that he had to go back to Gallifrey and he couldn't take her with him.
Yeah.
Why she was already moaning about leaving anyway, because I'm joking. And then you've got this story, which is well written. It's a story you really have to watch, and you start piecing it together, and then like you said, ahead of the characters, and it's fun seeing them work it out. I think this was the perfect story, because it had a bit of everything. Like one from every food group in this story, so you had a bit of everything, and I think that's perfect space for for the fans to get used to Sarah Jane not being there anymore before
Yeah.
they introduce someone new. So yeah, I think it's they should do things more often.
Well, I mean, like I again, I'm not ragging on this episode, but the as a this is a stepping stone episode,
Yeah,
and it's a very good stepping stone episode. You know, but I'm glad that they chose not to do a companion for this one, because you needed the time and the space to not forget about Sarah Jane, but when they introduce a new companion, then it's not like one up, one in. I mean, even though it is one up, one in, it's not at the same
it's
time.
not. Yeah, in terms of actually watching it on the telly, you would have gone practically almost a month. 28 days. 4 weeks.
Well, it would be longer, because if you think about it, Hand of Fear would have been like the end of Hand of Fear would have been on that Saturday. You'd have had 4 weeks of Deadly Assassin, and then the next week then would be the Face of Evil. So
Yeah,
you'd
yeah.
have 6 weeks pretty much between, from going to the Saturday you say goodbye to the Saturday you say hello, and Leela doesn't really become a full companion until the end of it, the end of Face of Evil. Really, she starts. You meet her. She's introduced in the first episode, but she's not really a companion. A companion until much further into the story. So, so really, there's a good 6 week gap between companions. So, yeah, as an episode, as a story, this is brilliant. Execution wise, impressive sets, good costumes.
Rubbish rifle, isn't it?
It's the fact that you can actually see it's just carved perspex, and it's just there's a little perspex notch sticking out, and you just slot it on, and it's just like that's how there's not even a clip in it for it to clip together. It's friction held in place, so it's like and the gas cartridges down the side.
Different culture, different gun, mate. That's what it is.
yeah, Gallifrey and gun. But it would be nice to have something a little bit more alien, though.
Well, yeah, definitely.
So.
That did look like we've taken apart this child's toy here.
Mm-hmm.
We've got this other child's toy here. We've made some perspex to go in the middle. So I can only agree with you on the gun.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you dehumanize it a little bit, if you dehumanize the story, take that out of it, the story still works. It's just you don't have to have, like, if you were to listen to this episode as opposed to watch this episode, your own imagination kind of fills in those blanks, and you'll go, that's not what I saw in my head.
I'll tell you what, if I'd have seen this when I was 4 years old, when it first came out in '76, I can tell you now, I never would have been such a big fan and collector of action men, because that would have scared the living bejesus out of me.
Yeah, there's a dead action man in the bloody camera with his grip action fist. Right. Anyway, that's the end of Deadly Assassin. I haven't got any more to add to that, unless you've got any more to say.
I agree with you. It's an 8.5. Brilliant story.
Yeah.
And the execution down a bit from last week.
Again, it's the execution is the only thing I'm taking points off for. And the reason why I'm taking points off for it is because it's something they could have done in 1976. It's not something that, looking at it now, they could have do it today. They could have done it back then, and it wouldn't have. They didn't need a train. They obviously they had bigger ideas, because there was a giant like ostrich egg that he steps in. So maybe they were supposed to be like dinosaurs or something. I don't know.
Well, that was disgusting, by the way. That was really well done.
Yeah. No, it was, but it didn't go anywhere. It didn't do anything.
No.
And it was. So I'm wondering if there is I'm wondering if there's part of this which should have gone in another direction, that they had to cut for time and budget.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and that's the only thing I'm taking points off for, is the fact that when they were making this at the time, they didn't have to go, we're using a safari hunter. no, let's go for something a little bit more alien, shall we? Let's go for Alien Hunter or something like that. Let's not use Eagle. Let's use even they could have had a model of a bloody, what do they call it? Pterodactyl or something.
They could have had that spaceship on a stick from last week.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that would be preferable. Again, having the biplane there, it could have been replaced with a Dalek spaceship. There's things that they could have done that really would have judged this story right the way up. And it just maybe I'm being unfair to it, but I think that at the production time, this is stuff that wouldn't have been hard work in 1976 either. Because they've already done previous episodes where this sort of stuff has already happened.
Yeah, I mean, if push had comes to shove, if it had have been, financial constraints or whatever, they could have just used stock footage from previous episodes. I mean, they've got colour footage they could have put in this all the way back to John Pertwee's first episode. So they could have done that.
But that's what I mean. There's lots of stuff that if they wanted to fill this stuff with like the Doctor's nightmares, there's lots of like Daleks, Crotons, all this sort of stuff from previous. I mean, from my personal thinking, the Mind Robber done nightmarish stuff a bit better than this, because at least it was, at least they had a unicorn, which is a fictional creature, the Kargas, which is a fictional character. I just think that there's things that they could have done in 1976 that was very viable, very easy to do. And they went along with, let's use a train, let's use a buzzard, let's use, very human, earthly things. I think that it just brought Gallifrey down a notch. And I've got to be honest, I don't think Gallifrey ever recovers. I don't think it does. I think the next time we see it in the Peter Davison era, whereby he goes back to Gallifrey, I don't think they elevate the Time Lords anymore. You get the time scoop and things like that, and that's all very well and good, but they very much back down to being just a load of bureaucrats walking around the city. I think the most elevation they've given is probably at the start of the Trial of the Time Lords.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
On board the space station. That's probably it, really. So, anyway, that's the end of Deadly Assassin. Again, a great episode. It is a great episode, despite my reservations and things like that. I've only knocked a point and a half off for execution. The score was good. Most of the camera work was good. Again, the amount of times they practiced that crash, zoom, pan, whip on location. There's only so many times you can do it with a film camera, because there's only so many takes you can do. But aside from that, it was. I think it's one of the best stories. It's better story than the last week, and as well executed as last week. I really don't have anything more to add. So next week is going to be Face of Evil, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, same here.
Right, so we're going to end this here, and we're under 3 hours. That's a bonus.
Hey, see you later.
Yeah. Take care.